Blindman guys. How's it going?
It's going good.
Pretty good, man.
Yeah.
Good.
So you guys had a pretty good day yesterday. 2 major awards. Maybe just talk about the awards you guys won yesterday.
Yeah, Shane, you.
Yeah. So yesterday the big ones were Brewery of the Year at the Alberta Small Brewers Association's Alberta Beer Awards, and then Best of Show as well.
Nice. So I was talking to you earlier today, Hans, and you sounded like you maybe didn't get any sleep. Is that you were celebrating?
I was celebrating
long into the night.
I was with our team celebrating. Lost some of my voice. Don't have that much of a headache, which is I'm very thankful for.
Your team seemed a little bit more put together this morning though than you did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the awards, just because for you guys it must be. I mean, what does it feel like? So Brewery of the Year. So how many breweries are there in Alberta now?
140 and change.
140 and change. So of all those, you guys were number one. What do awards mean, Shane? I'll ask you. What do awards mean? Is it something you aspire to get the awards, or is it just nice to get?
I think they're just really great things to celebrate with the team. It's always nice to have the feedback from the judging and of those awards as well. But for the most part, it's something to something physical that we get to showcase and celebrate the hard work that we put in.
Yeah.
Right. I think that the prestige of the award and the fact that when we're up on stage celebrating, it's that camaraderie and that team building aspects. Like everybody there works together to make that award happen.
Yeah.
And so everybody really enjoys that. And I think that more than anything, it's about just a showcase of what we did in the past year.
So do you know, I was talking to Jason Foster yesterday, and I guess I have a concept or an idea of how the individual awards are created or given out, which is like if you were to say have the best IPA or something like that. Do you know how they come up with Brewery of the Year? Like what's the criteria for that?
It's a point system based on the awards that were given out for each category prior to that. So I forget the point system, but gold's a little bit more than silver, and silver's a little bit more than bronze. And I think we just edged out 88, which took home a
we edged it by 1 point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I feel like we've been edged out in the past, so it's good to finally get one up on it.
Yeah. So how long has it been since you guys opened the doors?
A little over 7 years now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
8 years since we kind of all got together and started this whole thing. But yeah, 7 and a bit. It's been a ride.
Yeah, no doubt. Because Shane, you were in Edmonton before that, right? And then you actually moved to Lacombe to do this. So how has your life changed in the last 7 years? Because you were a beer geek, literally, long before the brewery even. But how's the last 7 years been as far as a ride for you?
An absolute whirlwind. The biggest thing was probably moving to Lacombe, and that's a significant change in our life and in the way we live. But we've been in Lacombe for 5 and a half years now, and so my partner Jackie and I we're coming up on 2 days from now is our third house anniversary.
Yeah.
So,
is that a word?
I don't know. I'm just making that
a
up.
new word.
Yeah. No. So
That's
awesome.
awesome.
we're putting down roots, right? Like we're there. Like we're integrated into the community. Yeah. We went to a hockey game on Saturday night. It was a fun thing. Like it's a
big deal for Shane.
It's a big deal.
That's like integrating into anything else. Yeah. Agriculture.
Yeah.
Beer stuff, but hockey game. Holy shit.
Yeah. Now that we live in Lacombe, sometimes I remember trying to get the van, and I'm like, "Where's the van?" Oh, Shane's hauling around like a side of beef in it. And
that only happened a couple of times.
That's awesome. And did you move to Lacombe, or what's your story?
I'm still in Edmonton. A little sad that we don't get to party in my basement anymore like we used to do before this whole thing. But having fun up there.
And so, just so people know, like, what are each of your roles within the company? Like, does anyone really know what you do?
No, they don't. So
This is Kirk.
You're looking at Kirk, right?
No. Okay, Kirk, what do you do?
I'm essentially in charge of our marketing.
I'm essentially in charge.
Essentially. And then I do other stuff.
Yeah.
Got the CO2, like all sorts of goofy stuff.
Yeah. Kirk does a lot of acquiring as much free money as possible from grant writing.
Oh,
that's true too.
That's a skill in and of itself.
It's a very, very strong skill that he provides to the team.
So 7 years ago, so what do you do, Hans?
I essentially run the sales department.
Essentially.
And I oversee our tap room, but we have a tap room manager, and I oversee our social media, even though we have like kind of a lead for that now.
Okay.
And I kind of piss Shane off, I think. That's the other thing I think.
I can see that just by your very nature.
Yeah.
And then what's your role, Shane?
Well, I essentially run production.
Yeah.
Nice. So Shane's the only essential person that I'm talking to right now.
Yeah.
So really, these are his awards.
100%.
Our essential stuff is fluff. Shane's is not.
That's awesome. So in the last
there's another guy, Dave, who well, just to jump back, last time we did this podcast, Matt Willerton, he was a significant cog in our business.
Yeah.
Him and his partner Lisa, who is our head brewer, and they live in the East Coast now. Mm-hmm. And they
moved. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
They got married in Spain, and they're living on the East Coast, and we wish them well.
Yeah.
We miss them, and so Dave, who's always been a part of the team, finally jumped ship from his day job, and he's full time with us. And Dave is essentially the guy who you've never met before.
Yeah.
He's the guy who is really good with engineering projects and CFO stuff.
Yeah.
He's a rock star. It's
nice.
Awesome.
So in the last 7 years, so I remember, and I say this, we've done the podcast a few times, but just thinking back to the first day when you guys were open, because I happened to be in Red Deer, my hometown of Red Deer, and so I made the drive out to Lacombe, and because I remember, because Shane, you poured my first growler and sold me a T-shirt, and but just where you guys have come from that 7 years ago, because I was just like, I've always liked Lacombe. I think Lacombe's a cool town. It's one of those like growing towns. It's got a vibrancy. But, trying to even find your guys' brewery and just, but now 7 years later, you guys own the property, right? Like you have made a lot of headway there. So let's just talk about that. Like what is, why Lacombe to begin with? Was it just because, Hans, you lived there, or selfish bastard?
Yeah, we kind of talked about this before, but it was a kind of a combination of two groups of people. Yeah. Dave and myself, and then Kirk, Shane, and Matt, and our head brewer at the time. And we decided we had kind of had some roots in Lacombe already. And in hindsight's 2020. We just have been felt welcome. The story of agriculture is awesome. The community support's been just amazing.
One of the things that you guys do really well, I think community is important to you guys. Obviously, Lacombe and Central Alberta, but then the beer community. So you guys bring everybody together on a yearly basis for your annual cornhole tournament. Which, did you guys win that again this year? You should probably stop entering your own cornhole tournament.
I think we're going to recuse ourselves from playing next year.
He says that now.
Yeah. Who's the most competitive? Because Matt was always sneaky, psychotically competitive.
In like things he like crib and curling and
like aggressively competitive at crib in a weird way.
But it might be Kendall.
Kendall is she's the ringer, so I think Kendall has to recuse herself, and maybe not me as much because she's way better than me. But she's the competitive one.
That's awesome. And then, like you said, the community of Lacombe has obviously embraced you guys for whatever reason. And then let's talk about just the beer. I always like to talk about what the beer community is, but I feel like in Central Alberta, it's kind of, there's a unique vibe. How would you guys explain kind of the, you guys, Sylvan Lake, Hawktail in Rimbey. It's kind of become a cool little destination.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to see that all the small towns have breweries that have been popping up over the last 5 years, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a niche thing that people look for as another add-on to their destination. But it's also a sheer fact that people are on the whole are looking at craft beer as something that's more acceptable. Like overall we're gaining more market share, and it not only is that, but it's also they're community meeting places, right?
Yeah.
They're places that people come for a pint after work on a Tuesday. People that we host special events or whatever that draw people out to the community, whether it's for charity or whether it's for recognition of somebody. So it's a community meeting place. It's like Cheers, right?
Yeah.
I think in terms of Central Alberta specifically, it's kind of interesting because I think we're all really proud of the Central Alberta group.
Yeah.
Like we did very well yesterday as a group of breweries in the awards, and we acknowledge it. There's a thing, like, we acknowledge Central Alberta did really well, and there's a story there, like the Ale Trail that ASBA's putting on is just going to be fantastic for Central Alberta for road trips and even pedal bike trips, and we're proud of that. I think we have this kind of cool we're not in the city, but we're still making world-class, I would like to think, world-class beer in these rural contexts where we can still tell that story even more closely.
Yeah.
And it is also interesting, like, as the brewery world gets bigger in Alberta, we kind of have our buddies with breweries that started at the same time as us, like Charles Monk, Dandy. But now it's almost more regional kind of. You just can't get out as much and visit all these breweries that you used to hang out with way more.
Yeah.
So we're kind of regionalizing a little bit more, and
you see that elsewhere though too, right? You see that in Calgary where
Big
there's kind of cliques of different breweries in different areas,
Yeah.
right? And Edmonton to a degree as well.
Yeah.
But at the same point, it's also we've seen the pattern of growth that other breweries are kind of that are at their 3 or 5 year stage that we're like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
And the other nice thing about it is too is that we're really good friends with them, but we also have individuals at those breweries that we've sometimes helped foster.
Yep.
Right. There's the Alley Cat story, right? Everybody used to work at Alley Cat.
Totally.
And now we kind of find ourselves 7 years in, seeing that we're starting to see some of those people grow and do their own thing.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my questions, is just from a mentorship perspective, because Neil at Alley Cat was so important to so many people that were in the beer industry in Edmonton. Have you guys had a lot of good chances to be mentors to other people and help them as they've, because you guys, if someone's new to the industry, like, you guys are the old bastards now in the best most loving way possible.
I took that way.
But you know what I mean? Like, you guys, like, are you able to kind of pay that forward, that kind of help that you got?
I think so. Yeah. Like, I got sad when somebody 2 years ago said, oh yeah, like, New England Pale Ale, like, that's like, that's old school, because it was the first kind of New England style beer in Alberta. I'm like, that beer's only like 2.5 years old, and it's already kind of like old. But yeah, definitely, like, I miss Neil. I miss hanging out with him.
It was good to see him last night.
Yeah, totally. And just love to chat with people coming up. I will say though, I was giving out terrible advice in like February of 2020. I was saying, hey, you know what you got to do? The only business model that really works is, get as small a space as possible, cram as many people as possible, sell everything over your bar. Turned out to be terrible advice, but
in hindsight, it was the opposite of what. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, like, in terms of mentorship, I would probably defer a lot of that to Shane, because Shane has been a huge ambassador for craft beer in Alberta.
Yeah,
like, we get these community builders of the year. Not because of anybody else. Well, I'll just preface a lot of our players, but team members. But Shane is going to be that guy who's given time and effort and the joy and of that conviction. And I'd like to think that we do it in all of our kind of own ways. One thing I'd like to just say is last night, it was pretty humbling when a brewery that you kind of know comes up and says, like, congratulations, you guys, like, basically, you guys are the reason we started a brewery.
Wow.
And those things are pretty sweet to hear.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, Shane, for you though, because before before Blindman, you were involved with the Edmonton Beer Geeks Association. So that's where you and I would have first met when Alberta Beer Festival started doing festivals in Edmonton. So I reached out to you. But like you're saying, Hans, like with your passion for the industry just in general, and just, sharing and showcasing craft beer, where did that come from?
That came from, I think, just a desire to grow the industry, because so back in 2010 we started up the EBGA in Edmonton, and at the same time I was also in the Edmonton Homebrewers Guild, and that came around from wanting to learn more about the industry, and I was moonlighting at a liquor store in Edmonton at the time, or a couple, and just saw that it was something that people sought out and had a passion for, the same as me, and they didn't know a lot about it, and so we started to partner with Craig Martell and his crew at the Wonder Bar.
That was on White Ave.
That was on White Ave. Was on the wrong side of the tracks, right? Yeah.
R.I.P.
Totally.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so it was they were just fun little pokey events where they started out with 10 people in the room and grew to a point where we were hosting large outdoor beer festivals almost 10 years later. And the fact that we're starting to gain traction with that because or people were just really interested in it. It was a fun pastime. They connected with the idea of craft beer, not only on the idea of it being a quality product that they wanted to consume, but also on the idea of what that brought to their social life.
Yeah.
And the idea of it being, unique and small and plucky and but at the same time is having a community aspect to it, right?
Yeah.
It brought people together. They had some commonality. They enjoyed the product. They enjoyed the beverages. They enjoyed spending time with each other. And the communications and the conversations that happened around that were something that I think that we mostly wanted to facilitate. And in doing so, on the other end of it, helped people learn about new breweries.
Yeah.
And I think that those things were a lot of fun to do, and it's not that I want to stop doing them, but we're in a different market now.
Totally.
So I would say that we can continue to do those small plucky events, but they're different now.
It's kind of like the Lacombe Beer Geeks Anonymous, but it's very informal.
Yeah.
And it's only at Blindman.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things that I saw, I guess, get launched yesterday was the Alberta Ale Trail. And I think what's really cool, and again, Shane, you've been in you guys have all seen, what this community was, let's say 10 years ago to where it is today. Like the idea of an ale trail 10 years ago would have been it wouldn't have even been on anyone's radar or made sense. But the idea that there's so many different clusters and that it's become such a tourist opportunity, is that something that you ever foresaw happening, to be where we're at today?
I think probably, yeah.
Yeah.
You go.
I agree. I'm glad it happened.
Absolutely, right?
Well, that was I would argue that that's why
breweries.
we started a brewery, and that's why Kirk called Dave and I back in 2013 and said, "Hey, we want to join. We want to get going before the tidal wave."
Right.
And so I'd like to think we had some of that. That was a bonus that we kind of had that foresight. So
Yeah.
But it's crazy that it is here now.
Yeah.
Totally.
Maybe we wouldn't have predicted 150.
Yeah.
And if that's kind of leveling off, but yeah, we're the 20th.
Well, I remember being somewhere with the guys from Village when they first opened, and someone telling them that there wasn't room for another brewery in the industry, and that was when Village started. So, and then 149 later, right? So, so when you guys look then to the next, I don't know, 5 years, what does the industry look like in 5 years from now, do you guys think?
Let's all answer that, because I want to hear your answers.
I think it'll keep growing. I think it'll be a bit more mature. You'll have to come, if you're going to start a brewery, you got to come, with everything kind of lined out right from the start. If I could go back, our very first batch of beer was not great, and we should have not sent it out. By the second batch, it was great, so I'm happy. But nowadays you got to come. First batch has got to be great, and I think there'll just be deeper roots. When we think about the beer we run one best of show for, 24-2 Brett Stock Ale. That's really tied to agriculture. Central Alberta has been an agricultural powerhouse for 100 years. And I think you'll see breweries, really getting deeper into their communities. Whether it's growers, of barley or hops, or just deeper into their communities, wherever they are. I think you'll just see it be just part of your life.
Yeah. You? What's your thoughts 5 years from now?
I like that answer. I think one thing is
don't steal his answer. You have to come
I'll
up with
try
a
to. I'll try to
answer.
add.
You should be in our meetings and say that all the time.
Yeah.
Like when like beer out of the gate's good is a standard, but I think marketing around it and having tight marketing it's already a thing. Marketing game is a big part of it. I was thinking about, like, I hope the most positive thing for the industry is to intentionally maintain the camaraderie and collaborative aspect of it. Jared at Red Heart, he says a lot of crap, but I'm just joking. He says a lot of funny stuff. But a couple things always stick. One thing that stuck is you have to foster intentionality, or you have to foster collaborative, like, camaraderie intentionally.
Yes.
You can't take it for granted. And we're at the place in the industry where we can't be like, like, it has to be intentional. It has to be for the betterment of the industry. And because, I don't know, like, we've heard more and more of the words of race to the bottom in terms of pricing and undercutting, whatever. We're in like this new place in terms of saturation, whatever you call it. So I think that's a very important part. And I think a good takeaway for this conference that Shane is like the ASBA is living is buy into ASBA, because like, that helps that collaborative aspect of it,
right.
And it helps that heartbeat.
Yeah.
And what ASBA's intentions are very good. And I think I hope that breweries are still buying in and continue to buy into ASBA.
Yeah.
I think what I would say to the question, though, is also to kind of go back to what I said earlier about the community aspect. So the breweries that are meeting places, right? And there's a lot of communities out there that don't have these meeting places, or they're underserved, or they used to have maybe a hotel pub or something like that, right? And I think that those are opportunities for small breweries to open up in smaller communities. There's a phrase that I'll butcher, but I think I first heard it from Jim Pettinger. It's the butcher, the baker, the fresh beer maker. Like these small communities, and as we get to the point where a lot of people are living in these small communities, catch up with the people that live in the cities and the local food movements and things like that, and wanting to know where your products come from, where your food comes from. I think there's an opportunity for small brewers to open up in those little centers, and they're not going to be production breweries.
Right.
They're going to be again those small plucky little breweries that they can run a mom and pop shop, and I think that's a good wage and a good living that can be held out of that, and that continues to grow the industry. And there's plenty of small town, communities in not only just central Alberta, but across Alberta that can build upon that. Like, you see the old guys sitting at the A&W having a coffee every morning. Well, there's a whole community of individuals that are going to want to have a beer at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Once they get kicked out of A&W, they got to go somewhere.
100%.
Yeah. I love watching. I was literally at the McDonald's here at a McDonald's in Red Deer the other day in the morning, just like working using their Wi-Fi, and it's just sitting beside the old guys. And like, no matter what town you go in, there's always like the old guys having coffee, and I love that. But you're totally right, Shane. Like, that whole community sense, and you see it. In a lot of small towns, it's going away, and the brewery can become that place again.
It's a catalyst.
I think it's so important. And then just from thinking about community, from a beer community, and to your point, Hans, about why Alberta Small Brewers Association is so important is it's important for us to physically get together. I think there's something so different about like. I don't like the idea of like Zoom calls all the time, and those types of meetings that are important. They have their place, but physically being in the same room, you interact differently.
Well, and even gathering around a trade show is different than gathering around a beer conference.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So like those are very different, meaningful things.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, I have a question for you. So the worst advice you said was like the model that you had suggested, which is like super small, pack as many people in. So what would your advice be now if someone was starting a brewery? What would the ideal model look like in your opinion?
Yeah, honestly, kind of echo Shane. If you're gonna be rural, be that meeting place, and then even in the cities, there's a lot of neighborhoods and cities where just connect with your community wherever that is, however you connect. Offer a third space for people.
Yeah.
And make great beer.
Yeah. One of the cool things, I was talking to some hop growers. And what's really neat is as the beer industry matures, that you see those other industries kind of mature around it. And so now all of a sudden, with the red sheds and stuff like that, you have, legitimate options in terms of locally grown malted barley, obviously with Rarbing and Alex. And then with the hop industry in BC and Alberta, like it's really cool to see these kind of maturing at the same time, where all of a sudden now all your ingredients literally can be sourced locally, and you can still make a world-class beer. I think that's awesome.
I think the epitome is what just won Best in Show. That is all hyper-local malt hops that are grown locally and malted at Red Shed. That beer right there. So that's kind of cool.
That's awesome. So where are the hops from on that one?
So just outside of Lacombe, there's a hop yard called Hop To It.
Okay.
And they have a little over an acre on their hop yard, and they grow 6 different varieties. They're about 5 years old now, and that's some of the hops that go into that beer. And the malt in it is a barley variety that was bred and developed at the Lacombe Field Crop Development Center, which is now overseen by the Olds College.
Yeah.
But there's a barley breeding program there, and one of the barley varieties there was called Low, and it was sown and harvested with antique horse-drawn equipment. Once the barley was harvested, it got trucked over to Clive, which is just down the road again. At the Clive seed cleaning plant, they cleaned it there and then trucked to Red Shed, where Joe did the malting on it and the roasting, and then back to us for brewing and aging it in a barrel.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
That's really cool. So that's something that's kind of a one-off then, is that right?
Well, we do a batch of it every year.
Okay.
So we take the barley harvest every year, and the majority of the barley from that harvest gets turned into the base beer for that, which is the 24-2 brown ale. And then we take a portion of that and put it into third-turn bourbon barrels, and then pitch another couple of strains of yeast on it, two strains of Brettanomyces.
Sweet.
Yes.
So Brewery of the Year, Best in Show. Did you guys? What other awards am I missing? Something I don't want to not mention something.
A couple of our beers got golds.
Yeah.
So the Dwarf Sour Cherry, which is another world-class beer, it got gold.
And using, in there we're using cherries that are grown in the prairies that were developed by the University of Saskatchewan for the prairie climate. And my prediction has been in 10 years you're going to see those cherries in your grocery store. Like, we don't just grow grains in the prairies. Like, we can grow lots of fruit, Hass-caps, dwarf sour cherries, all sorts of fun stuff. And yeah.
That's cool. It's always just fun connecting, obviously, watching what you guys, kind of where you guys started and what you guys have grown. Really, really cool. And like I said, and I always say it, it's supporting local is important, but it's easy because, honest to God, like it is world-class beer. So it's not like it's like, I don't like the term support local as if it's like, you're kind of like putting the consumer in this like awkward spot of like it's easy with the beer industry because of what you guys are producing. So congratulations on being recognized, and just pumped to see what you guys are doing.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Awesome. And you should get some Advil in you.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Okay.